is the one mistake of this program, and I fully embrace it as my own fault. Next time we do this, if we do it again, it might be the same stuff. I'm going to have people come and do actual dancing for this, like choreographed dancing, because I think that would be very appropriate for a lot of this music. The first piece, Oportunidad, was written by Carolyn Calvache, who's a jazz arranger and writer and band leader, composer from Colombia. And I honestly found out about her through Achilles Larmakopoulos, who is my favorite trombone player in the whole world. And in all honesty, even though this concert is called, Piazzolla, Nuevo, Tango, that's the concert title, it really is a love letter to Achilles and his playing. And all of you who are instrumentalists out there, if you don't have a favorite player, you should have a favorite player, because as much as I don't practice as much as I used to, I still follow everything he puts out, and he plays the way I want to, and when I play my horn, I hear that sound out of my own bell, or I hope to, and the stuff he puts out on records is exactly the kind of thing I want to play. So, in all reality, I think 6 of the 8 things on this program were things that he has recorded. So, it's really an Achilles concert. I hope you would appreciate that. But I also really found a great joy in researching some of this material as I was programming it. So, Oportunidad is specifically from a single movement from a larger suite called Latin American Street Scenes. This is the first one I've done of this, and also it's the only one Achilles has recorded, so maybe when he records more of them, I'll play more of them. Piazzolla. So Astor Pantaleon Piazzolla was born in 1921, died in 1992. He was an Argentinian musician, virtuoso on the bandoneon, which is like a square accordion type instrument brought over by German immigrants. Does anybody else know what's close to my heart as the other main immigrant instrument brought over from Germany to Latin America? Tuba! Says the tuba player in the front row. Yes, tuba has become such a huge thing in Latin America, partially because of, a lot because of German immigrants going to that country. If you go to Mexico nowadays, there's banda music that has tuba in all of it, and everybody seems to have every street corner has a different banda group, and they need a tuba player, so it's much bigger in Latin America than it is here. Anyway, he ended up leaving, coming to my notes, he left the Latin American tango bands in 1955 to create the new tango tradition that blended elements of jazz and classical music. Tango, specifically the dance tango, evolved around 1880 in dance halls and perhaps brothels in lower class districts in Buenos Aires, where the Spanish tango, which was actually a lighthearted, much different than what we think of as tango now, type of flamenco dance, merged with the Milonga, which if you think you look at the next tune on the program, Milonga en Re, a fast, sensual, and disreputable Argentine dance. In the 1900s, the tango became socially acceptable, and by 1915 was a craze throughout fashionable European circles. This early tango, where they were spirited and lively, but by the 1920s, the music developed a much more melancholy feel, much more somber in a way. The steps also changed to reflect that kind of music. So it wasn't as lighthearted and quick-stepped anymore. It was a little bit more melancholy. The milonga itself allows for great relaxation of the legs and body. Movement is faster with less pauses. The dance mimics a kind of rhythmic walking without complicated figures. I think you'll notice specifically that the milonga itself, in the piano part, just kind of keeps trucking along. It's not fast, even though it says the milonga was fast before, but the piano part keeps moving so the dancers can kind of stay in time with that, and the solo line kind of plays around with the time around that. So this is milonga. eventually hear the disreputable nature and the sultriness and the seediness that maybe was not acceptable to the early 1900s aristocracy, possibly. I think we can see it now. But Piazzolla spent much of his childhood in New York, but moved back to Argentina in 1936, when I think he was 17 around that time, where he started his own orchestra, composing and experimenting with new sounds. In 1949, he disbanded the orchestra because he was unsatisfied with his own efforts in trying to come up with new things. But he did win a composition competition at the time to study with Nadia Boulanger. Do any of you guys know that name? Nadia Boulanger? Yes. Those of you taking any type of music history class, and this has probably have heard of her. She is arguably the most famous music teacher of the 20th century, teaching people like Stravinsky and Copland and Bernstein, and also, notably, one of our very own Duluth natives, Tom Wagren. If any of you guys know who Tom Wagren is? Any hands? A fantastic piano player that actually was the original player of Chicago before, and then he gave that up and did other things. But he still lives in this town and is an incredible piano player, and got to study with her. So we have our own little 1 degree of separation between Nadia Boulanger and Piazzolla and us, who knows. So anyway, she told him to keep going. Do what you're doing. Keep exactly living your own, compose exactly what you're doing. Keep reinventing things. So he came back and he created a group called Quinteto Nuevo Tango, featuring violin, electric guitar, piano, double bass, and of course the bandoneon. The innovations that he employed in specifically the Nuevo Tango were some counterpoint, so some more varied lines intermixing together from his classical training and background. New rhythms, harmonies. A lot of this stuff was not initially accepted by his Argentinian friends and society. They really were holding true to the origins of their sacredness of their Argentine kind of sounds. But eventually, in Europe and the US, it was very much loved. And eventually, in 10 or 15 years, they started to really enjoy it. He got wide acclaim in Argentina as well. From the 1960s comes La Muerta de la Neve, which is from a series of angel pieces, one of the distinctive pieces with which Piazzolla shook the conservative world of tango. I love his way of describing what Nuevo Tango was. He says, Nuevo Tango equals tango plus tragedy plus comedy plus whorehouse. This is his words in describing Nuevo Tango. I think it's a fantastic way, and that's just how he used it to find his own direction in this, which again, you can see how some purists would have not been comfortable with this description. To that could be added greater harmonic sophistication, chromatic lines, over chains of dominant sequences, much like Baroque ground bass forms. So again, from his classical training, also, you'll hear, especially in this next piece, in the slower movements of this next piece, or the slower sections, you will hear basically jazz combinations and chord progressions. And specifically also, I think if you listen, you'll hear the song Misty, the jazz standard Misty. I hear it. I don't think it's ever, in any of the readings I've done about this, it doesn't say this is what Misty is from, but if you hear it, I'll ask you about it afterwards. Anyway, this is La Muerta de la Neve. Did you hear it? Like, it's kind of obvious. I don't know why I haven't seen it. When you look at the piece more often, I don't know why it says, L, Misty. Like, I don't know why the two of them aren't completely in the same sentence, but oh well, it's not my piece. I'm just playing it. Oblivion, written in 1982. If you look at when Piazzolla was alive, this was quite towards the end of his life. It's been described as haunting and atmospheric. It was famously used in the 1984 Italian film Enrico IV, so Henry IV, and is one of Piazzolla's most popular tangos. How many of you have heard Oblivion before? Okay, this will be fantastic. Many of you have not. You'll get to hear it for the first time. It's such an incredible piece of music. Go and check it out. It's been written for many instruments, and you can find tons of recordings of different people playing this and different fantastic musicians. The featured instrument enters immediately over a subtle arpeggiated accompaniment with a melody of extreme melancholy. Long held notes alternating with slowly falling and weaving figures. A middle section offers a minimally contrasting theme, lush but less intense. I think of this section as quite a bit more jazz influenced than some of the initial sections. Oblivion evokes sadness despite its lyrics speaking of love. It also has a harmonic sophistication and whispered sadness. I'd like to read the lyrics to you. I didn't put them in your program, but I just want to read them to you so you kind of get an idea where this piece is going before we play it. Heavy, suddenly they seem, heavy, the linen and velvets of your bed when our love passes to oblivion. Heavy, suddenly they seem, heavy, your arms embracing me formerly in the night. My boat parts, it's going somewhere, people get separated. I'm forgetting. Later at some other place in a mahogany bar, the violin's playing again for us our song, but I'm forgetting. Later it splits off to a cheek, everything becomes blurred and I'm forgetting. Brief the time seems, brief the countdown of a night when our love passes to oblivion. Brief the time seem, brief, your fingers running all over my lifeline. Without a glance, people are straying off on a train platform. I'm forgetting. tell why that one's kind of a favorite for lots of people. It's just incredibly beautiful. One of my specific favorites. The last piece that we're doing with just piano is a piece called Trombonsillo, again written by Carolyn Mikel, and if you are guessing, yes, it's recorded by Achilles Ojakangas. It is released on one of his CDs. It's a piece that employs the Colombian pasillo rhythm. So basically, this is a Colombian waltz, if you need some kind of frame of reference. But I guarantee you that's the amount of talking that's happening. There will be small amounts for the rest of this, but I wanted to give you more of a frame of reference for the Piazzolla stuff. So there will be much less chatting from now on. Still a little bit, but that's all I have to say about Trombonsillo. After this, we will have some string quartet and trombone. So the next piece that we're playing, a Nuvem Triste, is not a tango. The next two pieces actually are not tango, and they're also not Latin American. The first piece is Greek, the second piece is American. And I put them on the program for a very specific reason. The next piece by Alexandros Livitsanos is written for Achilles, again, news. But it was written after there was a very large fire burned down like an incredible amount of forest and land in Greece 2 years ago. And so this piece was written in honor of that. And the style not only is very much something that Achilles would record like all of his other stuff, but you really hear the melancholy in this piece that you hear in the tangos. So I just thought it fit so well with the program if I had had said Piazzolla had written this, you probably would be like, oh yeah, that fits right in his oeuvre, you know. Similarly, the next piece I'll explain a little bit after this. Actually, I'll just talk about the next piece right after this, since we don't have to break. The next piece after that, called "The Island," is written by Daniel Schnyder, who is a Swiss-born but New York transplant, who is a very big deal in the New York jazz and kind of like avant-garde compositional scene. He is an alto sax player and soprano sax player, and strangely, roughly in the 2010s, before that, he had a great friendship with a bass trombone player named Dave Taylor, and they recorded a couple albums worth of soprano sax and bass trombone literature, which, if you're wondering, that doesn't exist a lot. But all of a sudden, if you look at what they've composed, there's tons of music for them in multiple albums. Flash forward 10 years later, and we have another collaboration with Daniel Schnyder and Stefan Schulz, the bass trombonist with the Berliner Philharmoniker, and they put out multiple albums worth of it's kind of redoing the same music again and writing new stuff, all for soprano saxophone and bass trombone, and it's incredible. And this piece, when I talked to Achilles about specifically the island, he knew about it, and he's like, oh yeah, this is absolutely my kind of music, you know? So I hope you enjoy both Nuvem, Triste, and the island. As the brass players come up, and the percussionists, I'm gonna chat a little bit about the last piece. Also, I should have mentioned about the island. Daniel Schnyder loves to compose music that evokes the sound and uses the scales and harmonies of the Middle East. And you may have heard some of that kind of like Indian flair and Middle East kind of flair on some of the scales and some of the slide technique and things that are used in there. It's technically originally written for bassoon, but I think it sounds much better on trombone. I'm sorry, bassoonists. But I just think it's such an incredible piece of music. This trombone slide really evokes that kind of seductive, sultry nature. The final piece in the program is a suite of music from Piazzolla's opera, Maria de Buenos Aires. And it was written, the opera was written in 1968, and the music, this specific arrangement was written for the brass of the Royal Concertgebouw in the Netherlands, which is one of the greatest orchestras in the world. And I remember hearing this recording and I thought, I must have this music, I must be able to play this. And thankfully, the music is arranged by Stephen Verhelst, who is a wonderful trombone player and has put out tons of music for trombonists and low brass folks, among other folks. Check out Stephen Verhelst, see if he has anything written for your, he does great arranging. Lastly, I just want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming and supporting live music. Thank you all the people who took the time out of their lives to be a part of this recital, all the brass, all the percussion, all the strings, Jessica on the piano. It would not happen without you, and thank you for just going on this ride with me of, I want to do this, can we do this? Let's play these things, and they wonderfully agree. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy Maria de Buenos Aires.
Thank you.